And welcome to a special meeting of the Auburn School Committee, the March 9th meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's start with introductions down here to my right, please.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
At Gaudier at large.
Jason Levesque, Mayor.
Abigail Fauché, Student Representative.
Gabriel Desperado, Student Representative.
Mark Conrad, Business Manager.
Sue Doris, Assistant Superintendent.
All right, I know Clarissa has an excused absence this evening, and I'm sorry I don't know Pam Albert's whereabouts at the moment. All right, public participation. Do we have anyone here who would like to come speak to the school committee? And there she is. I don't see anyone for public participation. So moving right in, we are here this evening. The special meeting does have the biggest bulk of it is budget this evening. So Dr. Brown, take it away.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of items before we get started. At your place is a list of budget questions and answers from the last presentation, which was March 2nd. We will be adding to this as we go throughout the budget process. This is also posted on our website. So the way we have organized this is at each budget meeting, we will collect all of your questions. We'll then provide answers and give them to you at the next budget workshop, and then it will go on the web for everyone to see. So with that, I'd like to start with Mr. Davis. So Mike, come on down. And Mike, if you might, just share with the committee where you were when we were presenting, because I think that's a pretty important thing.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. And last week, when you met, I happened to spend 4 days in our nation's capital with the National Leadership Conference, and I am Maine's representative to the National Association of Elementary School Principals. And as Maine's designee, one of the highlights of being in this position is that you get to go to DC every spring, and we collaborate with administrators from around the country, and we learn about the themes that we're seeing. And honestly, the things we're seeing here in Auburn are the same things that we're seeing in every state across the nations. Whether it's budgets, it's COVID, it's enrollment and substitutes and social emotional learning. However, to cap it off, I was able to, and very fortunate, and I know Mrs. Matthew, Karen follows me on Twitter, was able to see that we cap it off with a day on Capitol Hill, where myself and my counterpart, Matt Haney from MDI High School, who's the secondary principals rep, we met with Angus King. We had a private meeting with Susan Collins. We had also a private meeting with Jared Golden. And then Shelley Pingree's office, she wasn't in attendance, but she had a rep, where we were able to then advocate for education for the state of Maine, obviously urging them to support the bills that were put forward in funding. And I think I was following on Twitter today that they're getting closer, pieces are starting to come through. But talk about feeling like you made an impact. We walked out of those conversations feeling like, wow, they listened to us, they asked great questions like, how do you spend your ESSER funds? And so we talked about those and the positions that we have. And like every other school in the nation that we talked about this, we talked about trying not to build the cliff. You hear that you put into the positions, or if you do, how do you find ways to be creative and, so you can support them in the future. But just wanted to share that because it was a super, and I said to Dr. Brown, it was probably the most powerful professional development I've had in my time as an administrator, because you felt like, wow, just little old me from Maine, and here we are in DC speaking with who I see are celebrities. I may not always agree with what they say, but they still are celebrities to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so moving right into some information about the Walton School and numbers that are used for calculating and planning for budgets for next year. You will notice that currently we have 17 teacher positions at Walton, and that includes 2 in the autism. One of those positions in autism is currently vacant, but we have a long-term sub position there. In our enrollment, our class sizes ranged, and these are October 1st numbers, ranged from a low of 9 that was in one particular kindergarten to, you'll notice that grades 1 and 2 are pretty significantly higher at 16, 17, 18. And so those would be our highest, with a total enrollment right around 210. That puts our regular ed classroom sizes around 13 and a half to 14. And if I'm thinking, we go ahead to projecting for next year, you're going to notice a significant change. If you look at the pre-K line, that is a line that we're looking to consolidate pre-K with another school. So that does impact our overall enrollment numbers. You'll notice that puts us below 200. And so if we just look at regular ed, we're projected potentially at 190 with 14 teachers. And so class size is around, if you round to 14. And so, and again, our second and third graders next year, class will be at 17 because right now they're in first and second. So we would anticipate those numbers will continue to be that next year. Staffing changes, obviously, for next year would be the reduction in the pre-K program. So that would be a tech and a teacher. And we would then also, we're looking to hire a full-time teacher for the autism, so the second room of autism, where we have a sub for the remainder of this year. And like everybody else mentioned last week, that we will continue to work with our new literacy and math programs. And then next year, there's potential, we're exploring options for math to potentially replace our everyday math program for next year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mike? Yeah?
Can you explain, Mike, the consolidation of the pre-K? What's happening?
That's a good question. So for the last couple of years, our pre-K numbers have been really low. Last year, I think we had 7 kids in pre-K. Obviously, it was a remote, the hybrid situation really took its toll on that. And this year, we currently only have 13 kids, and that's one session, not even a full session of pre-K. So kind of looking ahead at the needs of our district, we're thinking the trend is going to continue for a while. And with Dr. Brown's advice, we thought to consolidate. I believe there's with Fairview, I think there's another part of a position that we could do there. That teacher will have a position in Auburn, so she's not being terminated. Both would have a position in Auburn if they wish to have one.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Davis? All right, seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am skipping through to the special ed portion. And Laura, if you would come up. And Rod, are you a supporting cast member? Do you want to come on up too?
So I'll introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. I'm Laura Shaw. I'm the interim special ed director for Auburn, and this is my colleague Rod Boutot, who is the interim special services coordinator for Auburn. Thanks, Rod, for being up here. So, hello, school committee. I'm here to talk about Cost Center 2, which is all things special education, and as you know, it's a large part of any school budget. In the presentation today, I will talk a little bit about what special ed is. I will talk about some historical data that I've pulled together that might be interesting regarding special ed percentages, regarding disability categories compared to Auburn and the state. I will also be talking about each school and what the special ed looks like in each school building. I'll be talking about special programs that we have here in Auburn, and I'll be talking about related services and how they connect to special ed students. So if you look at the slide, what is special education? Special ed is specially designed instruction at no cost to parents to meet the unique needs of students with a disability. And what's important about this statement, and important for you to know, is that special education is a highly regulated, is very highly regulated by federal and state statutes. So we are obligated to provide what we call FAPE, free appropriate public education, in the least restrictive setting for students with disabilities. And when we consider the services that are appropriate for students with disabilities when we're on an IEP team, cost cannot be factored into those decisions. So in other words, if the team feels that the student needs a one-on-one ed tech with them, we can't say, well, no, we can't provide that because we don't have the means or the finances to do that. So if you look at this little chart that I've compiled, there has been an increase in the percentage of special ed students nationally and statewide. So if you look at Maine from 2015, it's steadily increased throughout the years to 2021. If you look at Auburn, I wasn't able to find 15-16 data, but Auburn has always hovered around 20% or a little lower. We've actually remained fairly consistent in our special ed percentages, and actually for 2021 we're very close to the state average. So I can't answer as to why that is. It's just noteworthy and an interesting trend for both the state and for Auburn. In this next slide, I've compiled some historical information for students under each disability category, and there are some interesting trends here, as you can see. So the number of students identified, and this is just for Auburn, by the way, the number of students identified with autism has steadily increased over the years, while conversely, students with emotional disturbance and multiple disability have slowly decreased. One of the things just related to multiple disability is the state did let us know several years ago that we were really over-identifying students with multiple disabilities, and we've been working to decrease that category. Other categories like other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech and language impairment, those have all generally stayed the same, up and down a little bit year to year, but generally have stayed the same. If you look at the total students in special ed from 2017-18 to the current year, it has slowly decreased. I would assume that mirrors the general school population. There's been a slow decline in enrollment for even the general population. So that's what our special ed numbers have looked like for the last 5 years. These are Auburn individual school percentages, and this was cross-checked between our Powerschool and our EDMS Adori program, which is how we input paperwork for special ed students. So if you look at the chart, we have a low of 13% at East Auburn, a high of 25% at Sherwood and Walton, and everything in between. It is important to note that many of these schools have district special programs in them, which may change the percentage. And then this data does not include the students who are in special purpose private schools, but does include students who only receive speech and language. All right, before we start talking about the schools, I do want to mention ed techs. Ed techs are a very important part of the special education budget, and they're an important part of the special ed team for students. We have historically employed Ed Tech 2s in this district. Ed Tech 3s have more credentials and have some flexibility in terms of how they work with students. They're a little bit more independent. They don't need direct supervision from a teacher. And if you notice, probably in the budget binder, there was an increase in Ed Tech salaries by a little bit over $50,000, and that is not because we're hiring more Ed Tech 2s, it's because we are planning on attempting to employ all Ed Tech 3s in the district. Right now, there are about 34 Ed Tech 2s who already have the credentials to be certified as an Ed Tech 3, and we would like to be able to certify them as Ed Tech 3s and pay them as such. And the reason that we would like to change Ed Tech 2 status to Ed Tech 3 is because, well, really a few reasons. Number one, we'd like to recognize professionals who have the credentials to be Ed Tech 3s, so they should be paid accordingly. number 2 because, as I said, we do have more flexibility about how we use Ed Tech 3s versus Ed Tech 2s. And because we are hoping with the 17 Ed Tech vacancies that we have right now, we will be able to recruit more Ed Techs knowing that the salary is a little bit higher. Incidentally, we also have 3 special ed teacher positions open in the district. Okay, so looking at East Auburn, this is what East Auburn looks like for special ed. East Auburn currently has 1 resource teacher with a caseload of 7, a half-time resource special ed teacher with a caseload of 5, and I won't go over all the service hours, but that's essentially looking at IEPs and looking at all the hours that kids have service. 2.5 ed techs to support special ed students, group sizes of up to 6, and there is a team leader who shares with Washburn who's there 1 day a week. We are suggesting that a half-time special ed teacher position be moved from East Auburn with looking at that caseload to ELHS for the 22-23 school year. Fairview, our largest elementary school. So Fairview has 3 self-contained teachers who teach in what we call the Junior Achieve program, and I'll talk more about that as a special program a little bit later. And their caseloads range from 7 to 8 with 2 or 3 ed techs in those programs. There are 2 resource special ed teachers with caseloads of 14 and 23 supported by ed techs. Resource group sizes are up to 3, and there is 1 full-time team leader at Fairview, special ed team leader. Park Avenue has 2 resource teachers with caseloads of 15 and 17, 1 self-contained special ed teacher with a caseload of 7. Each of these teachers are supported by 1 ed tech. Group sizes of up to 5 and 1 full-time special ed team leader. Sherwood Heights, another large elementary school. So Sherwood Heights has 3 self-contained special ed teachers for our behavior intervention programs. Caseloads range from 4 to 9. We have 3 resource teachers with caseloads of 17 and 20. I will note it says that there's a resource special ed teacher with a caseload of 6. That is actually an open position that is being filled right now by a contracted remote teacher through Soliant, and she only remotely serves 6th grade students. So she does have 31.5 service hours, but she really case manages the 6th graders. Group sizes are up to 11, and there is also a full-time team leader at this school, and she actually is a speech pathologist as well, and she has 2 service hours herself and services about 3 or 4 kids. Next is Walton. Walton has 2 resource teachers with caseloads of 13 and 16, supported by 2 ed techs. 2 self-contained teachers right now, as Mike mentioned. One of them is a long-term substitute. There are 4 students in each of those classrooms, and they are supported by 2 ed techs. Resource group sizes of up to 4, and there is a team leader, full-time special ed team leader at Walton, who actually has 2.5 service hours herself, so she provides some specially designed instruction for some students, and she also does RTI hours, so she works with students prior to referrals for special ed. Washburn School has 2 resource special ed teachers with caseloads of 12 and 22, 1 self-contained special ed teacher with a caseload of 8. Each of these is supported by 1 ed tech, group sizes of up to 6. And as I mentioned, this is the other part of the team leader that works 1 day a week at East Auburn. So Ms. Mishu works 4 days a week at Washburn. Auburn Middle School. So Auburn Middle School has 4 self-contained teachers. So 1 with a caseload of 7. He is an extension, a middle school extension, I guess, of the behavior intervention program at Sherwood Heights. We have another self-contained teacher with a caseload of 7, more of like a functional life skills program. Other self-contained teachers, 14 and 15, 2 resource teachers with caseloads of 25. There is another, and I put new resource teacher with a caseload of 14. She typically might have a higher caseload, but because she's new and doesn't have an ed tech, she has a little bit lower caseload. And again, there is a special ed teacher vacancy So that is being filled by a remote long-term sub who serves 28 students just in math. There are 6 ed tech vacancies, group sizes of up to 10, and 1 full-time special ed team leader. Edward Little High School. Edward Little High School has, I have to count, 5 resource special ed teachers, and their caseloads range from 18 to 22. There is a half-time resource teacher with a caseload of 8, 2 special ed self-contained teachers with caseloads of 14 to 16, and then 1 self-contained teacher with a caseload of 9, which is, again, the extension of the Achieve program. 5 ed tech supporting in general ed, and in the Learning Center. One of these is actually long-term subbing for another position, for a teaching position. There is at least 1 vacancy, maybe 2, and then there's an ed tech 3 for Learning Center, which is a guided study. That serves up to 10 students. And again, we're proposing to add the half-time special ed teacher from East Auburn to EL. Franklin Schools are alternative school, and there is 1 resource teacher, and she has a caseload of 18 and no ed tech. So Auburn does have a number of special programs. These programs typically serve our neediest students. They actually probably save the district a lot of money because many of the students in these programs historically have been students that we might have outplaced in special purpose private schools, but we serve them now in public schools. So Edward Little High School has an Achieve program, and that classroom serves students with intellectual disabilities at the high school, and these are very, very significantly impaired students. Some of them have one-on-ones, and they can range from intellectual disability to students with autism, to students who are blind. And he has a number of ed techs that support his program. Franklin School is not a special ed program, but it does serve special ed students. It's an alternative program that serves at-risk students in grades 7 through 12. But Franklin School is a small school with small classroom sizes that serve students who might otherwise might have to be referred or served in, again, special programs. Auburn Middle School also has an Achieve program, and that serves students as in the high school for grades 7 through 8. Walton School has an autism program, and that is 2 classrooms that serve students with autism in grades K through 3. Fairview School has what we call the Junior Achieve program, and that has 3 classrooms that are very full, and they serve students with intellectual disabilities in grades K through 6. We have the Regional Education Treatment Center, or Successive Students, or short for RETCSOS. There are 5 classrooms in that school that serve students with social emotional needs, and those students are in grades 5 through 12. And then there are special purpose private school programs, and those programs serve students whose IEP needs cannot be met in the public school setting. Talk a little bit about RETCSOS again. So there are 2 SOS teachers. They're all self-contained, caseloads of 6 and 7. And there are actually right now 2 self-contained RETC teaching positions with caseloads of 7. We are short 1 RATC teacher and several BHPs for the program, so we don't have a 3rd classroom right now. We also are supposed to have 2 clinical social workers. We have 1, as 1 is vacant right now. So I talked a little bit about special purpose private schools. This is what our out-of-district, what we call out-of-district population looks like. These are outplaced students, and these are students that are in Margaret Murphy or ALTC or Spurwink, some of those schools, and you can look at the breakdown. We have 35 in Margaret Murphy, 7 at ALTC, 6 at Spurwink. Renaissance has 6, the Morrison Center has 2, the Real School in Brunswick has 1, the Collaborative has 3, and that's a total of 60 right now. We do have a couple that are referred but waiting for placement because all of these schools are quite full. The projection, the projection for next year is 62 with the addition of 2 CDS students who are already in special purpose private schools. And last slide, this talks about related services. So when students have IEPs and they have the need for specially designed instruction, Sometimes they also need what we call related services in order to benefit from their education programs. And these are services like OT, speech, PT, BCBA services, social work services. And so just to give you a picture of who we contract with and who we employ for those services, that's up on the slide. So we contract with 3 occupational therapists who have all worked for us for a long time, and they have caseloads from 30, 36, and 43 plus RTI students, numerous referrals. They have large caseloads and work long hours, and those have increased since then. We just had a meeting today and just hoping to cover everybody's services between the 3 of them. We have 1 physical therapist we contract with. She has a caseload of 30, and those are her service hours plus consult hours, and she runs our Achieve swim program. We have 8 speech pathologists, and those are employees of the district. Caseloads of up to 33, plus they work with RTI students. And then we have 1 BCBA that is employed by our district and 1 half-time behavior consultant, and they work closely with the district behavior program, RETC SOS, the autism program, as well as RTI consultation. They conduct FBAs, help develop behavior plans, and those kinds of things. So, any questions?
For Laura? Yeah?
Can you explain what service hours are?
So the way that we determine service hours, so let's say you have, you're a resource teacher, and I'm just going to do the math easy. You have 10 students, and each one of those students has 3 hours with you. So you would multiply your 10 students by 3, and that would mean that you're providing 30 service hours.
Thank you. Any other questions? Pat?
Yes. So your team leader, is that also a teacher, or is that a separate position from a teacher?
Yep, so they're certified special ed teachers. They sometimes do provide, they sometimes do teach students, but what they do is they are the administrative designee for all IEP meetings. They complete assessments for triennials and reevaluations. They do observations, they collect data, they run 504 meetings, they check paperwork to make sure it's in compliance with the state and federal statutes. They work with the general ed teachers to develop behavior plans for students, or sort of facilitate RTI for students with behavior academics. So by law, we're supposed to go through RTI, or response to intervention, before we make referrals to special ed. So a teacher might want to refer a student to special ed, so the team leader would work with that team to make sure that the team has provided interventions to see if those have worked first before the referral is made.
And also, you talked about Ed Tech 2s and Ed Tech 3s, and I know that from past discussions as the board and from the budget last year that we were really interested in getting more Ed Tech 3s, because we can get, even though they cost more, they are able to do more.
Yep.
So my question is, what does it take to go from if I'm an Ed Tech 2, what do I need to do to become an Ed Tech 3?
There are a couple pathways that ed techs can take. Sometimes it's simply being employed as an ed tech 2 and gaining contact hours for a certain amount of time and once you've gained enough contact hours, then you have the credentials to be an ed tech 3. That's one way. They can take courses, that's another way. They can have outside professional development to get those contact hours. There's some remote programs. I think it's through up in eastern or northern Maine, where you can, in the summer, do some of their coursework, and by the end of the summer be an Ed Tech 3. So it's really contact hours and professional development, and whether that's coursework, whether it's webinars, or participating in some of these online contact hours, it's really contact hours.
So when you talk about contact hours, you mean like the hours that they spend with children, or?
Contact hours are hours that they're learning new skills, new information. So it's professional development.
Does this professional development cost anything, or is it something that they can do on their own that's free?
Much of it's free. Anything in the district is obviously free, but many of the programs that the DOE offers or that some of these community colleges offers is free. A lot of it's free.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Laura.
Evening.
Hello, Mr.
Todd
Sampson.
Sampson, Athletic Director. Before I get started with the budget, I would just like to give some praise to our community. We've obviously had a very successful winter on the fields and the courts, and the amount of people that have shown up and supported our student athletes is tremendous. Just like to give you a couple highlights. I know you've probably heard about our basketball and hockey teams, #1 seeds, had a tremendous season. We've had swimmers of the meet, KVAC with Andrew Caceres, McKenna Druin, track athlete at the KVAC. She went to New England's recently and finished second in all of New England. Set many school records. McKenna, Drew Heinman, and Andrew all set school records. We've got multiple candidates. John Shea for Mr. Basketball. Jack Keefe's a Travis Roy candidate. Caroline Audette was a Becky Schaefer candidate. We had 2 sportsmanship banners for our swim team from the MPA. Coach Mike Adams was KVAC Coach of the Year, well-deserved. Scott Morrison, Coach of the Year. So just a great winner. And breaking news, Ellis Slover, who wasn't a member of our Nordic team because he's a member of the Quarry Road Nordic ski program. He just finished 3rd at the Junior Nationals in Minnesota this afternoon. So just some great kids and athletes, and it's been a great winter. You know, sometimes as the athletic director, you dread when you end up playing your rival school in the playoffs, because we did it twice this winter. We had Lewiston in basketball on the boys' side, and we did it again the other night in ice hockey. But just to have the crowds back, we were worried about capacity at the Norway Savings Bank Arena Saturday night. We almost filled the place, and the basketball game. It's great to see the community support for our student athletes. So just wanted to throw that out there before we started talking dollars and cents. I'll be very brief this evening. It's pretty basic. We've gone through this before. The athletic officials' budget is up a tick, and we don't have a great basis for that. The NPA Officials Fees Committee sets those rates. They're at the end of a 5-year contract. We anticipate a slight increase. Most times officials that show up to do our games will get a $1 increase from the previous year. There is talk a little bit, and it's probably timely. They're worried about an increase in reimbursement for mileage, as well as a rider fee. And what that is if I go to officiate a game in Bethel and I ride with somebody else from Auburn, only the person driving the vehicle gets reimbursed for mileage. They're actually talking about paying the person that's the rider to reimburse them for their time. So I think we have a pretty good grasp on it, but that number might change just a tad moving forward. No changes to the professional services. You will see a decrease in that when we get into our new building, because we won't have to be renting the porta potties. We'll have facilities right there. And the online scheduling service, the impact concussion, both of those are thankfully staying the same amount for the next year. Repairs and maintenance, those are, once again, just health and safety things. When we, put a football helmet on a kid or a shoulder pad, we're obligated by NOCSE and by certification standards to make sure that those have been recertified and are up to code. We did, because we went a year without football, without tackle football during COVID, we did have a number of our helmets. They have a 10-year shelf life. So we had a number of our helmets that we had to dispose of. Supplies, we've been able to keep at the same level. And this is a good spot for me to let you folks know that our grandstand club, our booster club, who has really struggled the last couple of years without their big fundraisers, the Balloon Festival, and some of those, they typically sell concessions at the track and field at Bates College for Class B. They haven't had those, but our grandstand club that's meeting right now at the high school, they do a tremendous job supporting our budget. I tell our coaches in the preseason meeting, they very rarely say no. They just help support, put new scoreboards for our swim team over there. They're working with Auburn Suburban, another partnership, and working on some new batting cage. So that number is able, costs continue to go up, but that number stays for us at the same because of a great partnership with our booster club. Equipment and supplies, we were able to tick that down a little bit because of Mark Conrad's expertise in a new building. We were projecting buying some of our goals and lacrosse goals for our new facility, and Mark was able to share with us that the hope is that the state will help us with that when we open the new facility. So we were able to take $5,000 off of that line. Dues and fees, the big piece is the one right off the top. We can't hide it. Our biggest dues and fees there is our ice hockey, our rental time at Norway Savings Bank for both the men's and the women's program. We do pay fees at Fox Ridge for golf, the Lewiston Y for swimming, skiing. We've come back and had a great partnership with Lost Valley, who gives us a very reduced rate. There is some concern today from the KVAC meeting with the league dues. All of our facilities that we rent with the KVACs for indoor track and for our swim meets, they're all seeing increased costs, so our rental fees are going up there as well. Attorney fees, the MPA attorney fees, some folks ask, we packed the Cross Insurance Center last week, we packed it last night. Why does the MPA cause entry fees? And it's really those sports that don't have the spectators. It's the alpine skiings, the cross countries, the golf tournaments where we have to pay and to just try to offset the rental of those facilities for the entry fees. And student recognition, once again, this is the bare minimum, what we provide for our student athletes. We do a lot of the certificates right in-house. We have a great partnership with Jostens for the numerals and the captain bars. But once again, this is supplemented from our coaches in our programs and the fundraising they do. So, for instance, our boys basketball team tonight is having their banquet, and there's additional student recognition because I was asked earlier this week that that number looked a little light, and it's once again because we have tremendous support from our community giving back to our kids. So the stipends, the only minor increase from note from this year to next year is when we switched the JV volleyball stipend over. It was an assistant cheer coach in the fall, and it was very minimal. It was less than $1,500, and we've asked to move that up, I believe $1,200, and JV volleyball will match what our JV soccer or our JV basketball coaches get, just to be on par. And once again, that's a 4 or 5 year plan now that will bring JV girls volleyball to a varsity sport the day we walk through the new building in the fall of '23. That's our plan. Transportation, that number is going to jump off the page at you because of the fact that we had to use private transportation for many of our trips because of the fact that we need to, we need to leave before 4:15 to get to a freshman basketball game at 4 or a hockey game at 4. We've had to use that private transportation service. And the other question mark moving forward, and Mark and I are working closely with our athletic training service. We currently contract with Select Physical Therapy, and the plan is or was to increase that up to 24,000.
It's 24 now, it's going to
26. So unfortunately, as we started having those conversations, we're also at our end of our contract with Select Physical Therapy. And working with those folks, we've had a couple of conversations that they are struggling to find qualified athletic trainers. They're struggling to retain qualified athletic trainers. And it's really been great for us because we contract out for 30 hours. They have a full-time employee that comes to us for 30 hours. They pick up all of that person's benefits. They supplement the 30 hours for that person in their clinic a couple of hours a day during the off season for us. Just want to be transparent and let you know that their proposal for the 22-23 school year is jumping significantly up to $45,000. So we're working closely to find another alternative with that. And there's been a couple of options. Select also works with Poland Regional High School. So we're looking at trying to find another solution and try to lower that number. And this is something that's in the past been of interest for you folks, and it really just kind of gets down into the weeds of what it costs per student when you factor in the stipends, the transportation, the supply line, what it costs for officials, and then what it costs per pupil. And there's a couple of numbers that jump off the page there for you, and it really is those sports that have the expensive rental fees for the facility.
So I think that concludes Todd's presentation. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Sampson? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you very much on this. Are there any, and this is more general too, you talked about the boosters, and I know a lot of them, it's an awesome addition for this community, of course. Are there any financial barriers that some of our students can't get through that are preventing them from playing sports, especially some of the more cost prohibitive ones, hockey, football, skiing?
So most of those sports that you're right on when you say it's usually the ones that need additional equipment, and whether it be hockey or skiing, a lot of those have, for lack of a better term, a clothes closet. A kid that has gently used a piece of equipment, somebody that wanted to try the sport, we've been able to hand those down to them. I think the greatest example of taking some cost away from our community and kiddos that may not be able to afford it is bringing the middle school football back under Auburn Middle School. I think, if a young person wants to play football at AMS, they're going to have that opportunity next fall instead of having to try to come up with, I think it was $185 last fall. So,
And if we could, through the chair and the superintendent, maybe not a petition, survey of coaches, volunteers, and all these athletics. There's something, and I'm thinking about a couple programs right now that would probably fly under the radar that you wouldn't think would be an economic challenge. Skiing. The unitards these kids wear, though atrocious as they are around $450 a piece. They're hot on the used market too because they're always gently used and there's a big demand for them. But that right there is a kind of a barrier to forget the skis themselves, right? Which you can actually get past. There's sources, but if there's any way we could find out what that is from an equipment standpoint and actually put a fiscal note to it. I'm not exactly sure how you'd work that, if that was just a revolving fund or whatnot. I'd like to know that. And if we can't, solve that within this budget, let's find an alternate source of funding.
To piggyback on that, is there a program at the high school and the middle school where parents can donate lightly used equipment? I mean, I'm just thinking of my mudroom right now and a bunch of cleats that have been, collecting dust that I could donate that could go to someone else.
well, first and foremost, yes, we'd love to have them.
Okay.
There isn't anything formal. I do know down in our varsity locker room downstairs, there's 3 large trash cans of cleats and Under Armour gear and things that, if somebody needed them, we have them for them, but there's nothing formal.
Okay.
But we'll get random calls every once in a while to say, do you, I have a set of lacrosse gear that, my son's not using anymore, would you like, and we certainly, as long as they're, safe and something that our students can use, we take it all.
So that could be something that we could think of maybe starting where it's just a little more formal so that people can and know that it's there. Now you've got me thinking.
And we do have, and I think this has gone back to the John White and Danny DeShays, Jeff Benson days. I know of 3 community members, and they do not want to be recognized, that if a young person doesn't have a pair of cleats or doesn't have a competition helmet for skiing, when I ask them, it magically appears in my office.
Nice. One more question.
Sure.
Yes, sorry. The athletic trainer, I know that do we have an official athletic trainer, or is that the athletic trainer that was contracted with Select Physical Therapy? Because I remember her coming and doing a presentation about
Correct.
the AED and...
Yep, she's moved on, and I think that's probably reflective of what Select is battling, is that to become competitive in this market and retain quality athletic trainers, they're lower on the pay scale. So we do have a full-time trainer in place. He's been in place since August, doing a great job for us, really connected with kids and coaches. But the piece now is to be able to retain him.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Todd? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, folks.
Good evening. Peter Robinson, as I'm sure you recognize from my voice.
It's not followed by your typical lines, though.
No, certainly not. Here to talk about technology this evening. Thank you for the invitation. So I want to start right in with inventory. Right now we have 1,450 Generation 8 iPads in grades K through 2 and at the middle school. The middle school devices are Mlti devices, so those were provided through the state at no cost to the district. The K2 devices were funded through ESSA. We have 1,170 Gen 7 iPads in grades 3 through 6. All teachers and students have an iPad assigned to them. We have 415 MacBook Air 13-inch laptops that are assigned to elementary teachers, elementary administrators, and ed techs. And then we have 1,300 2020 MacBook Airs that are in grades 9 through 12. High school teachers and middle school teachers also have those. We have 218 projectors in classrooms. Our networks, we have 2 Ruckus Smart Zone controllers, 336 wireless access points, and 44 network switches. So to maintain all of that stuff, we have our team. This is unchanged from last year. Myself, the director, we have a network administrator, 2 technicians, 2 technology coaches, and an ed tech, 3 at EL, and another one at AMS, who are sort of the first point of contact with any students or teachers who have technology difficulties at those schools. The elementary schools and the other schools have a technology rep, who's typically just a regular teacher who gets a stipend to do sort of technology assistance. They're usually members of the technology committee. They make themselves available to sort of do first frontline troubleshooting as they can. I now also have an admin assistant who I share with Dr. Doris. That's been incredibly helpful in some of the data work that I end up having to do with the state data requirements where you have to upload information all the time. She's taken a lot of that sort of day-to-day work and freed me up to do other things. So this is the lines in the budget, and I'm not going to talk through all of these. This is really in the weeds that I'm happy to answer any questions on any of them. We have things in here like the eCollect and form subscription. That is our online enrollment portal for Powerschool. We switched to online enrollment during the pandemic because trying to do kindergarten registration when everybody was stuck at home was impossible. And the secretaries speak very highly of it. They love the fact that parents can start the process, have forms filled out before they even come into the school. So we've kept that up and have found it really helpful. Classlink single sign-on is incredibly helpful for teachers and students who have to sign on to a whole host of different platforms. We've added a lot of technology platforms to classrooms this year. Savas literacy program has a whole online component. The math programs have online components. They all have different sign-ons. What Classlink does is it gives teachers and students one screen that they can go to with a button for each of these things. They click it, and it logs them in, so they don't have to deal with all of these passwords that otherwise they would. We maintain anti-malware software on all of our teacher devices. Those are the ones that teachers have them. They are administrators on them, so they can install things. Sometimes they click links that perhaps they shouldn't. This protects us from any kind of malware that might get onto those devices and come in and get into the school network. We added level data reporting for Powerschool this year. That is helpful in that it gives the secretary some pointers in terms of the state data requirements. So if they don't complete all the fields, it highlights them in red. It provides reports so that principals and secretaries can see if there's any missing information. It also gives us a lot of real-time data in terms of attendance. It had some contact tracing functionality that we really got it too late for it to be very useful. I think if we'd had it earlier on, it could have been incredibly useful in taking some of the legwork out of that process. Next slide, please. So we have, as you know, we have a new district website. That's actually, I'm jumping to my highlights slide, but we'll talk about it here because it is now a budget item. So the district website is live. The schools will come soon. That is $7,700 a year, so it is in next year's budget for the renewal. We added Performance Matters to Powerschool this year. That's a sort of a longitudinal assessment data tool that allows us to collect all of our NWEA scores, all of our running records, any other testing data, and put it at the fingertips of teachers and administrators. So it gives them a list of students who are potentially at risk because of their scores, because of their grades, because of their attendance, because of their disciplinary incidents, anything like that. Really lets people see those things quickly in a simple list rather than having to dig through multiple different portals. Let's see what else is highlight here. A lot of this is really just subscriptions to software supports that we really need to maintain to keep our software updated and functional. Anyone have any questions on any of the specific budget line items? Okay.
I'm sorry, just one question. I'm
Sure.
actually on the website right now. The school department website, is that 100% complete without
The
clicking through,
district site is really done and live. We're still finishing up the school sites. We need to train people at each school who will maintain the school website, and then those will be live as well.
So the $7,700 is hosting fee on this?
Yes.
Including tech support and so
Yes,
forth? Okay.
yes.
And what language is it written in? Is it WordPress?
It's a proprietary system. It's called Intrado is the company. They're actually the same company that provides our messaging solution.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Peter?
I just have a comment. I just want to thank you for the website. For years, I've been frustrated with that website, and I'm just really grateful. So thank you.
The credit really goes to Dr. Brown because she said we need to change this. It's just not doing what we need it to do. And I've never had the support to be able to do that before, so I was very pleased to be able to move in that direction.
Well, thank you.
1990s we call it.
So highlights for the year. We did move the middle school to MLTI iPads. MLTI completely changed last year. They went to what they're calling MLTI 2.0. Most of you know this is a program that's been around since 2001, providing one-to-one technology in the middle school and later the high school. Last year they moved to a per-student reimbursement to districts, and the allocation that they gave to districts was exactly the price of the iPad package, which is why we selected that one, because we could do that at no cost to the district. It's working out really well. I mean, certainly when you make a shift like that in terms of platform, it provides some challenges. I think the iPad has come a long way from where it was when we tried to do it several years ago. We were ahead of the game then. It was too early. The software just wasn't ready, and we're seeing now that it's really a much better platform for middle school. We added a new Frontline, it was called Tipweb when we purchased it, then it was acquired by Frontline, asset management and ticket system. So we can now much more easily find out what we have, where it is, who it's assigned to. The ticketing system allows teachers to go in and pick from a menu of possible problems and much more quickly give us the information we need to be able to help them. Performance Matters I talked about earlier, that's our data management system within Powerschool, the district website. We are planning to use some ESSA funds to replace those 2015 model laptops that are in use by elementary teachers and administrators. Those are the oldest laptops that we currently have. I feel slightly bad for the folks who are still using those when everyone else is using shiny new 2020 machines, so we need to move that forward. The Mlti Expansion, this refers to the fact that the state program is allowing districts to add 1 grade level per year for this upcoming year and the year after. And so this year we'll add 6th grade, which means that we will free up some of the iPads that we have. Those are newer than some of the teacher iPads. We'll be able to cascade, and then we'll also be able to sell some of the ones that we don't use. Again, that will just be money that comes in. There's no cost to the district for the MLTI devices. Oh, guess that's my last slide. Any questions before I get up? Brian.
Yeah, with the iPads, do they cover the keyboards as well?
The MLTI ones?
Yeah, the MLTI
Yes,
ones. So they come with it's the iPad and the keyboard.
They
full
come
package,
with
right?
a very nice Logitech keyboard, and I actually heard from our Apple rep that they may be adding a keyboard with a trackpad this year, which will be even better.
I just have a question. Under inventory, you talked about the 36 wireless access points. Are those wireless hotspots that students can use, or?
No, these are the on-the-wall access points. We do have some hotspots. We got through T-Mobile's Project 10 million. We got 325 hotspots. I think currently we've probably deployed less than 10. They're available.
Oh, wow.
Principals have them. They know that if a student needs one, they can have it. We have them ready to go in the school, so if we think we have to go remote for some reason, they can be given out at that point.
Needed. Can students use those any time?
Absolutely. I mean, if there's need, we really are trying to make sure that we identify students who have need, since we only have 325 of them.
So is every child or every student able to access the internet in our city?
We have certainly communicated to families that we have hotspots available if they aren't able to access the internet. We currently are sending all of our middle school and high school devices home with students. Elementary now are staying in school because we felt that really that had worked well for us before the pandemic, and there was really no reason to have those iPads go home normally. Students have other homework to do that it doesn't involve their iPads, if they have any.
Any other questions for Peter? All right, saying none.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
all.
much. Dr. Doris.
All right.
Hello.
We're on to the Office of Academic Affairs. So thank you for the opportunity to share this budget with you tonight. I'm really going to share 3 different budgets with you. The first is going to be around curriculum and instruction, and the second will be our nurses, and the last program that we'll talk about tonight will be our gifted and talented program. So we'll begin with the staff in our office. We are very fortunate to have 9 instructional coaches, and I've included Peter's 2 technology coaches in my list up there because we're all working together. And in addition to the 2 technology coaches, we have 4 literacy coaches and 3 math coaches. And I also share an administrative assistant with technology. And the responsibilities for our team include coordinating and overseeing all of the district curriculum and programs, supporting high-quality instruction in our classrooms and across all of our schools, coordinating our district and state assessments, coordinating, planning, and delivering professional development, and that includes professional development in our buildings and across the district, and also in classrooms. and monitoring student progress and evaluating program effectiveness. Our priorities for the coming school year are to focus on the achievement of the goals that you have set for us around student achievement, and we are working toward the goal of 100% of our students achieving state standards by the year 2025, and we are working toward our graduation rate increasing to 95% by the year 2025. Next year, we're going to continue to implement our core literacy program, which is at the K-5 level called MyView, and in grades 6 through 8, it's called My Perspectives. And we're going to continue the implementation of illustrative math in grades 6 through 8, and potentially that will also be our K-5 math program as well. We're in the final stages of making a decision on that. Another area that will be a focus for us will be professional development for staff. And in fact, we are beginning to work on our professional development calendar right now for next year. Supporting our new teachers is going to be very important. Strengthening our induction program and our mentoring program is a real priority for us. We want to make sure that we can retain the staff that we hire, and so it's really important that we give them as much support as possible. And then another area that we're going to continue to focus on is using our data, not just to inform instruction, but also to measure the effectiveness of our programs and to look at the return that we're getting on our investment. And that's going to be really, really important with our new core programming, the math and literacy. We're investing a lot of money in those programs, and we want to make sure that we're getting the results that we expect to get. So for the curriculum and instruction, I just wanted to highlight some major expenses for you in the budget. We are having to pay for our universal screening for NWEA, and although the state assessment is part of that, the grade levels that we are assessing for the state are free to us. We have to pay for the other grade levels that we're accessing for NWEA. We have some technology applications that we pay for in this budget, summer curriculum work, content area supplies, and we have a budget for additional library books for AMS and EL. And then I also want to point out that ESSER funds right now are paying for literacy coursework and for professional development and also for our new literacy and math programs, and that's a large amount of money in there. And also our summer school is located right now in ESSER. And here's our summer school. So we just wanted to give you sort of a snapshot of what goes on in the summer. At the elementary level, our program is going to support our students who are below benchmark in reading and math. And last year, we tried out a different kind of summer school, and it worked really well. We hired teachers to work with individual students or small groups of students, and those teachers were deployed out to different places in the community, the rec camp, the Boys and Girls Club, different community centers, and also worked out of schools. And so we're going to go ahead with that model this year as well. And then we also have a program at the middle school, which is also going to support our students who are not meeting standards in reading and math right now. And we typically work with our CLC to coordinate and work together on the summer programming at AMS. And then for grades 9 through 12, we have programming at EL and Franklin. And the primary focus of that is credit recovery. So students will get into the program and they're going to work in there until they complete the requirements of the course and get the credits that they need to make up. All right, on to the nursing. So we have right now a nurse in every school, and this is a change from the past. We have not always been this fortunate. We used to have health assistants in several of our schools. So we have a combination of licensed practical nurses and the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, which is the difference there is in terms of the education. So our LPNs are not registered nurses with bachelor's degrees. So you can see we have an LPN at East Auburn. I'm not going to read through the list, but you can see that we have a nurse in all of our schools. And the budget around nursing is really around the supplies that are needed and the equipment. And you might have a question about the audiometer calibration. We have to do vision and hearing screening every year, and the equipment that we use for the hearing has to be adjusted. So that's what that is. And then I also wanted to mention that this year we have some ESSER-funded positions, and that's for this current year only. We have a pool testing coordinator, and we hired 3 additional, we had 3 additional positions that we hired for a medical assistant and 2 CNAs. And now for the Gifted and Talented program. So in our Gifted and Talented program, we have 4 full-time GT teachers, and they share some schools. So we have a teacher that shares Fairview and Washburn, a teacher at Sherwood Heights and East Auburn, a teacher at Park Avenue in Walton, and we have 1 teacher who is at Auburn Middle School and Edward Little. And I've outlined the responsibilities up here for you at the elementary level, and it's similar at the secondary. Our GT teachers are responsible for screening and selecting the identified students, and this happens at the end of 3rd grade. And our teachers provide direct services and pull out enrichment classes in grades 3 through 6 at the elementary level. They consult with teachers, and they monitor and support students. And the responsibilities are very similar at the secondary level, although there's a little bit of a shift there. There's direct instruction for some accelerated math students at AMS, and we're continuing with the consultation with the classroom teachers, and at the high school level, coordinating and overseeing the AP course offerings and the end of the year testing for AP classes. This is giving you a sense of the numbers that we have. And what you're going to see up here is that we actually identify a small number of students who are identified as gifted and talented, but we also service additional students. So we have, at the elementary level, 36 identified students in grades 4 through 6. However, we're servicing 185 students. And at the secondary level, the number of identified students is 73. And we are directly servicing 13 students, and that's grades 7 through 8 only. And then you can see the AP enrollments. We have 167 students enrolled in 11 AP courses. And the primary expenses in this budget are around the curriculum materials, the digital resources, some field trips, and professional development for GT staff. And I also want to mention that in our Title IV grant, we pay for the fees for AP exams for any students that need that. Okay, on to the highlights and celebrations. So this has been a very exciting year in the district with the implementation of our new literacy program. Right now, we have a research-based, equitable reading program and reading instruction happening in all of our schools. And we also have the illustrative math program in grades 6 through 8. And one of the things we're seeing with our math program is that students are engaged and that there's a higher level of discourse, which is talking about math in the classrooms. And across the board, in terms of literacy with our student work products, we are seeing positive gains in vocabulary and in writing. So if you were to take a tour around any of our elementary schools right now, you would see some amazing student writing up on the walls. I also want to highlight what Peter mentioned around Performance Matters. This is a new learning management system that gives us data right at our fingertips, and it allows us to quickly identify students who are at risk so that we can hone in and provide them with support. Another highlight from this year is the strong professional development for teachers and the on-site coaching that's happening in our buildings. And Another thing related to performance matters is the use of data walls at the high school to monitor progress toward graduation. Our staff up at the high school and our administrators at the high school are doing a great job watching students and making sure that they have the credits they need and that they're making progress toward graduation. And I just wanted to highlight something that we talked about in the fall. Our literacy scores have improved from 47% proficient to 62%, and that's a gain of 15 percentage points. And we are getting ready to do our spring assessment. So I'm very excited to see what the results will be, and we'll be excited to come back and report the results in June from the spring assessments.
Thank you, Dr. Doris. Any questions for Dr. Doris? Yes.
I just have a question. When you talked about gifted and talented students and the identified students and the direct services, what do you mean? I guess I'm a little confused as to what that means by direct services.
Yeah. If a student is identified as gifted and talented, they will receive direct services in the same way that when Laura was up here talking about students with IEPs, they also will receive direct services, specialized instruction to meet their needs.
From a gifted and talented teacher?
Yes, from a gifted and talented teacher.
Okay.
But you have 36 students that were identified, but 185 are getting direct services.
Yes. So the students that are identified are getting the specialized instruction, and it is expanded to include other students who are not identified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Doris? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
That concludes our budget presentations for the evening.
All right. Any questions the school committee would like to add to the ongoing spreadsheet, or have Dr. Doris or Dr. Brown look into further? All right, seeing none, moving on. Student report. Gabe, you have some things to give us an update about?
Yes, Abby will be helping me out since we're both involved with student council and executive board. So we have pretty eventful stuff coming up later this year. So Abby will start us off.
All right, so we're going to just go in order of upcoming events. So next week for EL, we are doing our Winter Carnival Week. For themes, Monday will be Sports Day. Second theme is on Tuesday. It is Dress Like a Teacher Day. Wednesday is Bring Anything But a Backpack Day. And Thursday is Matching Day. And Thursday we will hold our rally, which has some of our typical events such as tug of war between the classes. There's a musical chairs event, eating contest with Giorgio's Donuts, and it's going to be really great for our students, and we're looking forward to it.
Great.
You said Thursday?
Is the rally.
What time? No. Giorgio's Donuts? Specifically? And can municipal leaders, like mayors and councilors, go?
Sadly, I believe it's limited to just students and faculty. Anyways, going further into the year, our second date that we're looking at is May 6th because the student council has put together a subcommittee, possibly hosting an outdoor theater fundraiser for the whole Edward Little. We're also looking into inviting incoming freshmen so they can become Eddies sooner. Currently, we put out a survey just to see how our school would like it. We've gotten over 100 responses, with nearly 60% saying they would go to the event and over 85% saying they were interested or they were going into the event. Currently, we're working with local businesses, or we're going to, and working with local partners to try and get this event off our feet. We put budgets together, and currently we have everything in place, so we're just hoping to act on those as soon as possible. And third and finally, arguably most important, is prom. That's executive board, not student council. The juniors are hosting it at the Chorus Shrine in Lewiston. Our theme is Old Hollywood, so think Marilyn Monroe and all the other pearls and boa feathers and everything like that. Our current date is May 14th. We've gotten a DJ as well, so currently we're just looking at decor and advertising and hopefully selling invitations soon, possibly in April of some site.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you both so much. Okay, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Brown, there's nothing under your report.
Nothing to report this evening, Madam Chairperson.
Mine either. No school committee chairperson's report. Any city council updates, Mr. Mayor?
No.
Okay. Because this is a special meeting, that's why it's focused mostly on budget, so I'm kind of like cruising right through. Don't believe we have any committee reports this evening. They will be reported on next week during a regular meeting. New business, and one of the other big reasons we're here this evening. Can I entertain a motion to ratify the transportation agreement with the MEA?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Oh, I think I heard Dan, did I hear a second? Okay. Questions, comments on that? Other than thank you, Brian, for taking lead on that one. It was hours and hours and hours to get an agreement ratified, so I think we're ready. And
Yeah, I think one of the other comments is that the association ratified it unanimously, so that's also just goes out to kudos to our subcommittee and putting together a good contract. I think we heard from the guys there that they think they'll be able to bring in new talent. Obviously now we can post more positions because the salaries are finalized, so it provides a lot of opportunities now. So I think I'm glad to see this one go through.
Absolutely. So with that, can I call for a vote, please? All those in favor of ratifying the transportation agreement with the MEA? Thank you. Motion passes. Upcoming meetings, March 10th, which is tomorrow, we have Finance Subcommittee. Next week is a regular school committee meeting on March 16th. We have Policy Committee coming up on March 22nd. March 23rd will be another special school committee, I believe, for budget. And moving on, I'm going to do a call for future agenda items or requests for information. Seeing none, I have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Do the copies. I had two of them.
Get to-